Hello friends, it's your boy Scotch Carb here, and I'm here today to talk about the first ever game jam that I took place in, because I am of course a game developer now. I've been doing a game development technical college course, TAFE course, and I'm becoming more and more qualified to make video games. And I say that without any irony. I'm actually improving a lot. I can feel myself improving. Just that at the moment, I am still learning. I'm still learning, and the game jam that I took part in over the weekend is part of that learning process. So it was the one script game jam, and essentially the idea of this game jam is to create a fully functioning game with the use of a single script file. So normally, if you're developing a game, you want to put your eggs in multiple baskets. You want to make it so that you have a script that does a very particular thing, and you attach that script to a particular game object. And the idea of this one is that you just do all of that in one script. And without going into too much detail, there's a lot of reasons why that's a bad thing to do, and there's a lot of reasons why that's a very complicated thing to do. And yeah, I didn't know how to do it, and I sucked. Spoiler alert, I didn't finish my game. I ran out of time, mostly because I think I just put too much idea into the game I wanted to make. And then when I started making it, I then spent the entire first day, so it was like from Friday-ish through to Monday. I didn't finish the game, so submitting it wouldn't have made a difference anyway. But the theme for the game jam, because they always give you a theme to work to, was the hunt. And the game idea I came up with was this kind of like procedural roguelike thing where you were the captain of an airship tasked with hunting down another airship that had stolen plans to some kind of imperial weapon, and the whole civilization was a sky-based civilization around Jupiter. I just kind of fucking threw stuff together, taking inspiration from a few different sources. I liked the idea I ended up with, and I'm going to finish making the game. It's just that the time I lost on the very basics of trying to get the game finished is time that I then didn't have to actually make the game itself. And yeah, unfortunately, it's not done. It is what it is. But I had fun, and I learned a lot. So I, started off with the planning process, which looked a little something like this. And yeah, and so I had the plan for the game put together, and then I started coding, and I straight away ran into some issues. I'd already worked out, or I thought I'd worked out, how exactly to have different, the same script do different things depending on the tag that was assigned to the game object. But it turns out I didn't quite understand it. And as soon as I started working with different classes in the same script, I had to learn a whole bunch more than I already knew about inheritance. I had to learn, I had to teach myself a lot of shit in a short amount of time, and unfortunately didn't quite get there. So my first day and a lot of my second day looked a lot like this. But I trucked on with it. I got past those issues. And the one thing I'm really proud of is that all of the code that I wrote in this game is 100% just my code. I didn't look up any tutorials on how do I make this happen? How do I make that happen? And follow some German guy's, tutorial on how he did it. I worked out how to do stuff by myself, and it's not great. It's probably not efficient, but it works. I'm Captain Jack Sparrow. But it works, and though I didn't end up with a finished game, what I ended up with is something that functions. So I'll just go ahead and give you a live preview of that right now. So if you're watching this on the itch.io page, or if you're going to jump across the itch.io page to download this, be warned, it's not a finished game. I was going to include all of the code. I'll include all the code. I'm just going to include the project because it's a mess. Like, if you take this project and think, oh, good, I can steal this man's game. No, you're far better off not stealing this man's game. So, I'll full screen this bad boy. Actually, no, I won't, because I want to show stuff off in the inspector while I'm playing it. So, generally speaking, the way it's meant to work, if I just jump across to here we go. So the way the game's meant to work is that you've got, this is essentially the playing area. Each of these empty objects is basically a spawning node that will just spawn all of the nodes that are here in this list, plus these two nodes here. The seed node thing is like left over from an earlier iteration of how I was generating stuff. But you'll see it in action when we actually play the game. I'm trying to think if there's a way I can actually... I can just switch back and forth between the scene and the game once it's running. But essentially, there is one script in this game. I'll just open it up real quick and we'll just, I'll show you the script. I think I have I have stuff collapsed, so let me uncollapse everything. Okay, that's about it. So in total, technically 1,315 lines of code. Let me zoom in a little bit. But the thing about that is that there's a lot of commenting of stuff that I didn't end up writing, and there's a lot of stuff that's redundant. There's a lot of just endless if else statements. But the way that it worked essentially was that you had the base class, which was the class that every game object would have and would be referenced. And then I'm not going to explain all of it in detail, but
you didn't have to cut me off. Think I like it never happened, that we were nothing. I don't even need your love, but you treat me like a stranger and I feel so loved. No, you didn't have to stoop so low. Have your friends collect your records and then change your number. I said I don't need that though. Now you're just...
So, each object in here has that, and then you change the tag depending on what they are. All that's boring shit. The characters, they're meant to... there's a bunch of prefabs of different stats that would randomly get selected. You get a random selection to choose from at game start, and you choose 4 of them to be your party. Didn't end up doing that. There's different panels. One of them is a loading panel because I had to sequence stuff. I had to delay some functions happening so that other functions could happen before the functions that happened, and yeah, it's a mess. But the mess that I ended up with is basically this. A whole bunch of placeholder stuff. So you get your now loading thing. That's on a timer. That will always be the same thing. So the gameplay as it stands now is basically of the different nodes around. Also, you can zoom in and out with a mouse wheel. Of the different nodes that are around you, you can select them. The final product was meant to be so that if you moused over it, it would tell you what the name of the settlement is. Planet, settlement, location, whatever. There was going to be an area name in each of these, like where each of these were. There was going to be an area name. Didn't end up happening. But the idea would be that there's these clue nodes that spawn in randomly. And they more or less spawn further out. Increasingly further out. So the clue one's always going to be within this kind of area. Clue 2 is going to be further out. Clue 3 is going to be much further out, and then the actual objective, which would be the airship you're meant to be hunting down, would be right out on the edge somewhere. Potentially, I hadn't really decided. I was thinking of having it be, a chance for it to be on the interior as well. You could run into it really early and just win, but it would be a boss fight. But the problem is that I didn't get the gameplay done so there was actually a boss fight or anything like that. But the gameplay essentially as it ended up being, which I still didn't end up finishing, was that every time you went to a node, you would get given two choices. Your left-hand choice would always be a choice where you would be able to increase your supplies or recover health. So each character has, where are they? Where are my characters now? Here. So each character has, you know, HP. And your right-hand option would be something. So each of these, like, so this one would basically use the gamble stat. And so we'll just confirm that action. It doesn't do anything. The only actions that work right now are the recovery action and the fight action. So we'll jump over here. So this one would be bribery to recover HP. And this one would be using investigate to get info. Now, info is going to be a stat where basically the more info you had, the more precise a prediction of where the next clue and ultimately where the target, like, end game boss was. And the idea was every time you move to a node, a meter would tick down, saying that it's closer and closer to, like, getting away forever. So you had to basically try and find it before that meter ticked down. If I went through the game design document more thoroughly, I could actually explain this stuff. But anyway, so you had, like, these, you know, every time you arrived at one of these locations, you could choose to try and, like, recover HP or recover, I was gonna have, like, supplies, which would be like fuel essentially. There's gonna be money, which you could use, like, on other nodes to, like, bribe people and get information that way. And the idea was that, like, as you got more information, so you'd have, like, a list you could open up that would list, like, each of these sectors and be like, according to the information we have, it is X%. There's an X% chance that, you know, this sector has the contains the quarry. And to start off with, each of them would just be like a question mark. And then as soon as you start getting information, I think the way I would have done it would have been like a float, where, like, for the one that actually has the ship in it, that would increase by, like, you know, 0.75%, right? And then round up to 1%. And the others would be like, you know, 0.25% and round up to 1%. So it would seem like they're all going up equally, but over time, as you did more investigate things, as you got more info, there would be, like, a market increase on one in particular, and it'd be like, okay, this one's definitely the one that actually has the boss in it. And then every time you got a clue, beat one of the clue node bosses, it would jump up, like, hugely. You'd have, like, another thing which, like, shows you, like, where the next clue is, working on a similar system. And yeah, it was a whole thing that I never got around to actually, like, implementing, but this is what we ended up with. So again, all these options don't do anything. So, like, this one was gonna be, like, one which could give you narrative stuff. Like, I had this whole thing I planned out where, like, if you did enough of, like, these events of, like, getting, like, world history and lore essentially, which wouldn't help you finding the boss at all, but if you did enough of them, you would then have, like, options at the end of the game to, like, choose a different ending essentially. Here we go. So using stealthy to fly medical supplies, that doesn't do anything. This fight thing does do something. So what this does essentially is, for each character in the party, it'll generate a score they have to beat, and then each character, like, rolls a d6 essentially, adds their fight stat to it, and then compares that to the score they have to beat to say that they were successful in the fight. And if they were successful, it then reduces the HP of the enemy in the encounter by, like 25% plus a random number between 0 and 25. So they could do up to like 50 damage basically. And then the thing itself would have a randomly determined amount of HP between like 50 and 100, I believe it was. So like if you've got 4 party members, you're gonna win these fights most of the time. Having said that, I didn't win the fight. So let's see. So 2 characters won their fight, and 2 characters lost their fight just then. And the enemy still had 7 HP. So this is stuff that I probably would have like ended up having like displayed to the player as well, but I just didn't get around to it. So it's just sort of all there in the debug menu. It doesn't say which character out of these 4 characters did what, but safe to assume that the 2 characters with like a fight of 10 that I got here won their fight. But yeah, and the other thing with the fighting is that they would each character would take damage every time that you did a fight, and so you would then need to like try and heal them. There's a chance that they could die if you did it too much, and the less party members you have, the less likely you are to win fights. So you got this. So the only healing option that works right now is the one where like you just heal the entire party for free, and the way that works is if the health is below 25, it'll heal up to 25. If it is above 25 but below 50, it'll heal up to 50. If it is above 50 but below 75, up to 75, and you guessed it, if it's above 75 but below 100, up to 100. And so you just do that, bam. So now character 4 is at 100 health, character 3 is at 75, character 2 is at 50, and character 1 is at 25. And now theoretically, if I find another one of those nodes, it should do it again. So you'll see as well as I'm moving around. Let me just do it again. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, he's a thing. I did character 4. Yeah, cool. Character 4 did not heal up to over 100. So that isn't bugged. And you'll see as I'm moving around, like nodes are turning blue. Basically meaning that they are within range of movement. The way that's determined at the moment is essentially the player character just has these 8 sphere casts going out, and the first node that sphere cast hits registers as a valid destination. So as you're moving though, it'll like sweep across several, and so you'll end up with more than 8 options. But I ended up doing it like this because I had a system previously where like it would just do a sphere overlap, and what you end up having is pretty much what we have here right now, where like I can click like this option and I'll pass through a node on the way to another node, and it triggers both of them. So if you visited a node, it'll show up as white. If you go back to that node, nothing happens. Nodes that are out of range are red. One thing that I've done, which I probably would want to fix in retrospect, that's interesting, that one says it's in range, but I can't. Oh, okay, never mind, I can. But yeah, one thing I would want to fix in retrospect is the fact that nodes that you've visited but are now out of range still turn red, and that doesn't really give you a good indication of like, you know, shit, have I already checked this area? Have I not checked this area? So yeah, there's a lot of improvements that I would want to make to this. It's kind of just what I was like throwing together on the fly. I wanted to have like, I think that in general, the way that the map generates could be better, because right now it's just this kind of like random scattering. What I kind of wanted was like a fairly, like a random but fairly evenly distributed network, kind of like Stellaris, right? But yeah, kind of like this sort of thing where it's like, if you're on this node, you can travel to these nodes, and it shows you like which nodes can be traveled to. And I think I know how I can do that. It's just like when I was initially setting it all up, and because of the time pressure and because of, you know, the technical issues I was having, Well, that's really not fair because it's 100%. What? Works on this one, doesn't work on this one. And it's exactly the same. I ended up like just kind of doing this and then sticking with it. I reworked like this system a couple of times as well. Okay, cool. I won this fight. So if you win a fight, you get money and you get information, basically. But yeah, it's... I think it had a lot of promise. It's just like... Yeah, I didn't finish it. But yeah, that's about it. That's this is the first game jam I've ever done. It was... I think the main takeaway, like staying positive, like I'm not salty or like disappointed that I didn't get the game finished. I think I realized like on probably day 2 that I wasn't going to get it done. And yeah, on like Sunday, so yeah, Sunday at about 8 PM, like I think I'd just gotten the fighting working and I was like, man, I'm so cooked and there's still like so much left to do. But it's not going to be like I wouldn't have been satisfied with finishing it in its current state, if that makes sense, right? Like if I had have finished it and had something to submit for the game jam, I wouldn't have been satisfied with the outcome anyway. Like it needs more time. But hey, the takeaways are I need to make my ideas a little bit simpler, I think. Definitely need like simpler ideas and that's probably the one lesson to learn is just like a more simple idea for a 3-day game jam. Well, yeah, kind of 4 days, but yeah, for like a game that's gonna get made over the weekend, definitely need a simpler idea. Also my pride like kind of made me want to do it all myself and not like work in a group. I think maybe I should work in a group next time so that if we do have a bigger idea, we can sort of delegate stuff, because I had this big idea and it was just me doing it. And it was like, all right, you know, that's not realistic for me to get it all done by myself. Kind of. I still think that like if I hadn't have run into the roadblocks I ran into on the Friday and the Saturday, I would have been in a lot better shape, I think. But the main takeaway is, like I said earlier, all of this code, as bad or good as it is, all of this code works, and I made this code. Didn't follow a tutorial, didn't like take stuff. I referenced like stuff that I'd done in college when I was trying to remember like, yeah, shit, like, how does that thing work exactly? But in terms of like thinking, hey, I want like, you know, I want a system that randomly distributes, you know, stuff around the game world. I did that without like looking up how to do it. In terms of like, you know, oh, I want to be able to like click or mouse over a game object and have it highlight green. I worked that out without, like, you know, I looked on the Unity manual. I Googled like a little bit on like how to get this to happen, but I didn't look up a video tutorial and just follow that by rote. I actually looked up, like, I found basically for a lot of this stuff, I just like found like what method or what function, like what inbuilt Unity function like achieves this effect, and then worked out how to actually like make it do what I wanted it to do. I mean, that's like a really valuable learning process for me. I'm not just like getting told how to do a thing and just doing what I'm being told to do. I'm wanting to do a particular thing, finding out like what tool in Unity will let me do it, and then doing it. But yeah, that's probably about it. So look forward to this game, looking completely different, and being up on my itch at some point. I won't say soon, but actually the other thing that the game jam taught me is, so like even during college, and then after college when I was like, cool, I'm free of college now, I can work on my own stuff all day. I did very little actual work. I did like fits and starts of work and was like, oh, I'll do more tomorrow. And then like with this game jam, where it was like I have the weekend and the weekend only to get a product like done, I pulled like 12 or 14 hour like work days. Like, you know, like took breaks to like, you know, have lunch and you know, watch a little bit of YouTube or whatever. But like for the most part, on like the Saturday and the Sunday especially, like I started fairly soon after I like woke up, and I just went like all day. Forgot to eat lunch on Saturday, in fact. And actually, no, I forgot to eat lunch on Saturday and Sunday. Just didn't eat lunch. And so the main takeaway I think as well is that I can put in like I can get a lot done fairly quickly. I don't know how sustainable it would be long term, but like I can get a lot done if I actually sit down and work for an entire day. Because I've got like another game that I was wanting to make over the holidays, and I've like done a little bit on it, but like the amount of hours I've actually put into it is very low. So it's been a couple of weeks and I haven't made much progress on it. But that's because I haven't done like the hours. And looking at this, it's like, man, if I actually like do the hours, I could get a finished product within the time frame that I was wanting to get it done in. So yeah, that's I think the other takeaway from this. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Look forward to my genre-breaking, genre-defying games in the future.